Coming up on today's episode of No Place Like Home.
We are not overstating it when we say our marriage changed overnight because you read this book and immediately changed.
It isn't about any sort of skill. It really is very basic. It comes down to seeing the person as another person and also taking responsibility for your role in whatever the conflict is.
You have to be very vigilant in making sure, just like you make sure that you're getting enough fiber in your diet and you're getting enough water and you're getting enough sleep, that you're protecting your ability to see things as they really are.
Right.
And not as they feel like they are.
Hey everybody, welcome to No Place Like Home, a North and South podcast where we talk about the power and magic of homemaking. I'm Mike and this is Megan. We have been married 25 years, we have 9 kids, and we like talking about all things pertaining to home. So we're really excited to be here with you today.
It was a beautiful day.
Yes, it was a beautiful day. A
Spring
little
day,
bit cool, but it's
clear.
spring, so it's okay.
Yeah.
So Megan, what's been happening around our house
So much.
as of late?
We had a prom last weekend and a prom this weekend.
The boys are going to 2 proms, Peter and
Yeah.
Asher.
Yeah.
Jeez.
That's because we used to live in one part of Charlotte. Now we live in another. So they're absolutely going to both proms.
You're right. They're going to take advantage of that.
Today, we released a video that actually we just filmed today. It was really easy. We threw it together.
This was a quick one.
Yeah. I went with Eve to the local antiques mall. That is the best in the area. What is it called? Gibson Mill.
Gibson Mill.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's a cool old like cotton mill. There's a lot of cotton mills in the area, made into just an enormous and really nice antiques mall. There was like some beautiful furniture there. I didn't look too much.
You're right. You had to be careful.
But we went dedicated to look for clothing because I've been looking for blouses. This is a new blouse.
That's not thrifted,
This
though.
blouse, let me tell you guys, I got this from Walmart.
Wow.
Walmart's doing a good job lately. This is 100% cotton. It's got all these cute little details. It's like so comfortable.
Wow.
It wasn't very much. But we went and looked at all of my favorite booths at the antiques mall, and kind of like that's my like pro secret for secondhand clothing is actually all of these girls. I think some of them must go to estate sales because I don't know, they're finding these incredible like almost antique.
This isn't stuff people
pieces.
just give away.
I mean, some of it is, and they've just curated it like really great brands, and just when they bring it all together and then they put it in their booths full of like vintage and antiques, it all looks so amazing. You feel like you're like in the coolest little boutique. And in a way, I guess you are.
Totally.
Yeah,
That's
so-
what they want you to think.
Me and Eve went over, went shopping. She loves antique malls and she's got good taste. I found a couple things, so you can go watch that video.
Yeah. Go to our
wanna see.
YouTube channel, North and South, if you want to see that. Or if you want to watch this. We say it a million times, but this is a podcast and also a video that's on YouTube on North and South. So,
Yep.
both places you
Yep.
can catch it.
Also this week, we got a question, literally I think like maybe the day of that pertaining to the answer, but somebody emailed and was like, you mentioned that you're going on Peter's senior trip soon. Where's Pearl's senior trip? And we're homeschooled, so we don't actually have like years of school because we're not like that. We aren't using
We're not like that.
Well, we're not using like some sort of organized curriculum that's organized into those years. But usually before you leave home, for any given reason, we take you on a trip all by yourself. And Pearl's been kind of like waiting in the wings for over a year now because she has been having some new issues with her back that are causing a little bit of loss of ability, particularly with her ability to walk. And so it was so gradual and so slow, and it was building over last calendar year. And so I was like, we can't go on a senior trip until like walking's gotten easier. And so she was like just like trying to go for longer walks, and we thought it was just she needed to practice more, walk
Kind of
more.
strengthen herself and that sort of thing.
That like somehow, as you get older, you're not as young, your ability to be fit is not a given anymore.
Yeah.
So that's what we thought was happening because it was so slow. But by this last fall, mid-fall, it was like, I think something more is going on. And so we started we went to just like our regular physician.
Went through the process of meeting with the
Yes.
primary care and then...
Yes, and we finally
tests
made it
and-
to the top. What is like the guy in the boss in the like video game? We finally made
the
it to the
boss.
top boss that you're going to fight or whatever. Not going to fight.
Or they can actually help you.
Yeah. Just this last week. And that was the day that somebody had said, when is her senior trip? We can't wait to take Pearl on a senior trip, but we also are waiting to find out if it can be what kind of senior trip it can be. I mean, even walking in airports takes
There's a lot of walking and travel.
walking.
Yeah.
And you can totally do that with help. And then traveling, especially in Europe, it's a lot of walking, and it's a lot of walking on uneven surfaces. And so we were just kind of in holding pattern all last year to see, and now we're still in holding pattern. She's probably going to need to have a procedure, and then we'll kind of see where we're at, and then we will plan the senior trip, because there are totally great resources out there to make it possible for if walking's not possible, but you don't have every type of trip available to you if you're trying not to walk too much.
Right.
And so we know the general area we want to go. We know we want to go. We're excited to go, but we want it to be a great trip. So that's what's happening. And the reason I'm sharing it now after months is it was like small appointments that didn't mean anything. And then this week I talked to Pearl before this final appointment and asked, and I said, do you want to share this on YouTube? And she's like, yeah, totally. That's fine. And she's like, probably be interesting. So we filmed that, but we will document it and share it in the coming weeks, what we find out and what's ahead for Pearl and for the rest of us. So that happened this week too.
Current events.
That's
done.
Yeah.
Okay, let's move on. Megan, you have a quote for us or a thought for us that's separate from today's topic, which we're going to get to, I promise. But what's your little tidbit?
I saw something really interesting on X this week, and it was interesting to me because it was coming to the same conclusion that we have come to on our own.
Right.
And maybe in chatting with our family, and then to see that like almost everybody's coming to the same conclusion.
At least all the people that commented.
Yes. Well, I guess I shouldn't say almost everybody. A lot of us are coming to it, and I wanted to share that with you, and then kind of talk about why we came to it and what we think it means, and I don't know, just to chat about it. So this is actually from Matt Walsh. I like Matt Walsh. I've been following Matt Walsh since like 2008 or 2009, early in Facebook. I put my glasses on. But he's a little bit of a curmudgeon. That's kind of his shtick. That's his thing. So this was also interesting because he's a little bit of a curmudgeon. But he said, I used to be entirely in the camp that said you should kick your kids out at 18 and force them to live independently and make their own way in the world. I don't feel that way at all anymore. I want all my kids to live with us until they get married. Even after they're married, if they want to live on our property or close by, my wife and I would love that. The important thing is to teach your kids responsibility, which we're doing. They need to contribute and help around the house, which all of our kids do from a very young age. Provided you aren't raising ungrateful, useless moochers, there's some serious Matt Walsh there, why kick them out? Why drive them away from your family home? I don't see the point in it anymore. I actually like my kids and like being around them. Maybe they'll all end up scattered to the wind, but I prefer to keep the family together. Why wouldn't I? He continues the conversation in the first comment. He said, a lot of parents think that you can reap the rewards of parenting by kicking them out of the house and reclaiming your independence or whatever. So the reward is just going back to your pre-parenting state? No, the reward should be a family that you love and get to enjoy until you die. The reward should be raising children who one day also become companions and eventually caretakers. The reward is not or shouldn't be 30 years in a silent, empty house and then dying under fluorescent lights in a nursing home. And there's just a lot of people talking about how they've felt that same thing. You know, one of them, I think Kristen Hawkins, she talked about how like she thinks instead of saving for your kids' college, save for a down payment for their first house. Or right. Like even buying a piece of property where they could build a house where you could all be close to each other, like a family compound.
Yeah.
And fascinating to me because I think
we've come to that similar conclusion.
Yeah.
Because when we were younger, we thought, well, when they turn 18, they leave, and you want them to leave because they need to do that.
It's a sign that you were successful.
Right. Yeah, and that they were launching.
Yeah. And
we have gotten a little more nuanced with that. A lot of our kids have left for a mission.
Yes.
That is leaving and not, they're not coming back for a year and a half or 2 years. However, we realized, like, wait a minute, why do they need to go out and never come back?
And like just pay rent just to show that they can,
right.
Or something, or have us pay their rent just so that they aren't at home or something. And one thing, I know that a lot of people that comment on our videos aren't from America. And so like that was never the norm in a lot of countries outside of America, that families did stay closer together. I also know as I've gotten older, I've realized that it hasn't been the norm for like all of human history. That like families always stayed or tried to at least. The norm was to stay in the same area, sometimes the same home. You would have 3 generations. I remember some of my friends that were immigrants had like literally 3 generations living in the same home, and it seemed really happy and full. But it also didn't seem like the norm. It wasn't typical.
Right.
And I know that growing up as a teenager in the 90s, I was telling our kids this because I brought these same quotes to the dinner table. This was like always, it was discussed, like people whose kids are like good for nothings living at home after, whether it's they live at home while they're going to college or after college, that's like crazy. So I think for one thing, the last 2 generations really is the ones that did that. Before that, I think people were still staying
They
close
were staying
to their
close.
family.
Yeah.
And
it started with our parents.
And maybe their parents.
Yeah.
But I think it's probably a sign of like an incredibly abundant economy during that time.
Yeah.
Where just literally millions of small, affordable single-family homes were being built. The GI Bill, everybody's getting these houses and having their own thing, and now we're all like getting cars and moving out all around the country.
Yeah.
And so I think our grandparents and our parents did that, and a lot of them moved away from their families and lived as little single units around the country. Not everybody did, but I think the economy has changed, and there's like when starter homes are what like established. I remember growing up in my town, we were in this like master plan community, and you knew like each neighborhood, this is the rich neighborhood. This is the rich part of this master plan community. And I remember when I was probably in middle school, like there's a house there that's worth $500,000.
Yeah.
And we were like, oh, $500,000.
Yeah.
And that was like the 90s. That wasn't that long ago.
Yeah.
And like literally, I know some of the places like where our actual kids live, like in Utah, $500,000 is literally now like a starter home.
Right.
Which is wild. That is not enough time has passed. Incomes have not gone up. I think it used to be that like in the 70s, your home usually is twice your yearly income, the cost of the average American home, and now it's 7 times. So I think that's part of it, obviously. And before our grandparents, the same sort of thing. You didn't, you had these multi-generational homes going on.
Yeah. We've kind of come to the way that we have it left with our kids is like, look, if you want to be here, you're welcome to be here.
Yeah.
And if you want to take time, because it can be a spot where you can either save money, in Andrew's case, build a business with your brother without having to worry about all the other expenses that come with normal life. Or if you've gone away, but you need to come back here to have a few months, to, again, save money or get ready for the next step. And then you do that. We don't mind that it's kind of a revolving door.
No, and it's like use that opportunity to save money and to like not have to worry about those things while you're trying to build things still.
And if some do eventually, if we're in a situation where they want to live close to us or on the same property, that's a pretty cool idea.
Yeah,
and certainly.
2 things. We're this year at church, we're reading the Old Testament for our Sunday school curriculum. And so we're all reading it individually. And this week I was reading about Jacob, or whose name becomes Israel. And if you didn't know, Israel's like a person in the Old Testament, and he has 12 sons, and they eventually become tribes. But at this point, they've sold their brother Joseph into Egypt. It's an amazing story, by the way. If you're like, wait, what are we talking about? And he eventually becomes the second man in charge in Egypt, and he saves
Joseph and the Technicolor Dreamcoat.
Yeah, that's right. If you've seen the musical, right? And he saves everybody, and it enables his family to live, and he invites them all to come back. And it was going through who came, and it's like his dad came. His oldest brother came with his wife and these kids and their kids, and like all these people came, and they're all staying together. I think I like Zuby. He's like a hip hop artist, but he was saying how like these things are building legacies, and multi-generational families are able to build wealth much quicker.
Oh, okay.
Because you are pooling your resources, and we've seen that. We've seen that with our kids, how much the things that they have learned have added to our family.
Oh, for sure.
Instead of like...
not like direct money, whatever, but actual
talents and resources,
information.
Like their skills. As our children have learned skills through their own studies and through their own acquisition of knowledge or whatever, they've brought that back to the rest of the family and blessed us all. You know, right now we have Andrew and Peter designing this game, but Pearl is their illustrator, and Elijah helped them film their promotional, you know, commercial, and it looks amazing, and help them build their website. They all worked together to design a logo. Like, it was like so collaborative, and because they could bring those skills, and that's how families used to do it.
Right.
And that's why
help
it
each
builds
other.
a legacy and greater wealth for the family. And we're not just saying that you're just after money, but that's a cool idea that I
Yeah.
think got lost in the abundance of the last couple generations that I think a lot of us are interested in again.
Well, and I think you could have a whole conversation too about how the ability now to homeschool,
Yeah.
because I think Matt Walsh homeschools his
Yeah, he
kids,
does.
and we do, and it creates you already have this community at home where you're all together a lot, you're working
to
together
work
often,
together.
you're learning together often. Your kids are, in our case, are free to explore their interests and to develop those skills, and then they can turn around and work with each other and help each other, and they're already sort of accustomed to that
Yeah.
equation.
Yeah.
Whereas if your kids are going away to school every day and they're separated from each other, and again, you just come home at night,
Like a boarding house.
it
yeah.
it may not feel quite as natural to do that, but we're
Yeah.
already together, so it's an extension of that already happening. So
Yeah, several podcasts ago, I read that quote about like the family used to produce. They produced things together, like they had a farm or they had a business or something along those lines, and it required cooperation. And that's really cool. And I think we heard that quote, and our friends, the Stubbs, heard that, who are also homeschoolers, and we were all like, "You're right. We need to build a business with our family or something. We need to build things together." Like
Yeah.
it has been lost in the last couple of generations. You don't think like that. And if anything, it was like, "Oh, don't work with family. You'll regret that," you know?
right, like the worst thing you can do.
And it's like, so I'm just supposed to go hire a random person I don't know when I could actually train up one of my kids and teach them these things and work together. So it's not like a black and white thing, but I think it's fascinating. I want to keep talking about it on here. And I want to hear from you guys if you're starting to feel that too. Another thing that's really, really occupied my mind is mothers and homemaking and the struggle that mothers have. And part of the struggle we have is how isolated we are from other women. It used to be that you would live very close to your mother and maybe sisters if you had any, aunts, grandmother. And so not only were you trained throughout your childhood in homemaking and those skills and mothering, but then could lean on that community. So you weren't just alone with a baby. And now, you know, you're on a street, there might be another mother. She might work. She might have much different age of children. You might have that in your church community. That's a huge blessing. But like it used to be all around mothers, like everybody on your street. In fact, when we were growing up, there were
Lots of
kids
kids,
everywhere
lots of-
and
yeah.
mothers all at home that could rely on each other and say, "Hey, do you have a cup of flour?" Which would
Yeah.
be really strange now
To
to
go
go
to
to
your
our
neighbor.
neighbor.
Yeah.
We don't live in that type of neighborhood anymore. I'm sure some of you do, but like our current neighborhood, we're in a rental, so we've only been here a year and a half, but it would be kind of strange to knock on somebody's door and be like, "Hi, I'm actually your neighbor. Do you have any eggs?" They'd be like, "Go to the store, you weirdo."
Yeah, it's 5 minutes away.
Yeah, like, no, what is this, a scam? I think that's another part of it, is that when we all separated and moved to different parts of the country to find these great jobs, to work for these large corporations instead of a small town business, go to college in a different city, that sort of thing,
Yeah.
you lost that support structure that was just built in for mothers. And makes it a lot harder, and I think there's definitely a relation between that and postpartum depression and dissatisfaction and just overwhelm for mothers.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Interesting topic.
Yeah.
Let's keep talking about it
Well,
in the future.
And I think that plays a little to our topic today.
No.
So I think there's
Good.
some parallels here, because part of that happening with the family living either with each other or close to each other is everybody needs to get along.
They want to live by each other. That's
Yeah,
what you said.
they
I like
actually
my
want
kids.
to.
I
Yeah,
want to
like-
actually be by them.
So, and that's also a strange thing to hear someone say, "I like my kids." I mean, I think there's sort of a stereotype or a cliche that mom can't stand her kids at like
Can't wait
summer.
till they leave.
Yeah, summertime is this trial because she can't stand me with them, and then like if you're on a vacation with your husband too long, you want to get rid of him too because you're tired of being around that guy. So, but what we want to talk about today is some principles that help couples get along, and I think families get along and enjoy each other's company a little bit more.
Yeah, and in fact, these principles come from a book that you found. In fact,
Yeah.
I didn't ask you. I wanted to wait till today. How did you find this book?
I think someone recommended it to me.
Like at work or something?
And I think at church, honestly. I think it was someone at
Oh.
church recommended this book, and I got it. So should we get into it? Should
Yeah,
we start talking about it?
Yeah.
Okay. The book, look at this. You can see
Look
it.
at this book. If you're just listening, it's just like completely
This
black
is a completely black book.
cover. It had a dust jacket
It
on.
had a dust jacket once upon a time. You might be able to see these letters.
Yeah.
Let me get it straight here. This is Leadership and Self-Deception
Yeah.
by the Arbinger Institute. Now, this book, the title of it does not make you think that this is going to be something about relationships or about marriage. I really think they should have named this Marriage and Self-Deception or Relationships and Self-Deception. It's an amazing book that will help you and your spouse enjoy each other's company and could very well save your marriage, really, because I feel like the things that we get wrong that are highlighted in this book erode relationships to the point that they can completely fall apart.
It's like a silent killer.
Right. And it's the sort of thing where you kind of stand each other, or I should say put up with each other till the kids are gone, and then you're gone too.
Yeah.
So this is an amazing book, and I want to go over some of the principles that I learned. I read this book back in 2005 or something like that.
Yeah, maybe 6.
It's been a long time,
Yeah.
20 years ago. And I want to go over some of these. Well, we'll both go over some of these principles and how you can apply it in your marriage.
I just want to say that Mike, I remember when Mike wrote this.
I wrote it.
Yep.
Well, I wish I would have wrote it.
Yeah. It was amazing.
I made some money.
He was just at the typewriter. Now, when you read it, we had 2 young kids, just Elijah and Andrew. Andrew was probably a baby or a toddler. We are not overstating it when we say our marriage changed overnight, because you read this book and immediately changed. It was like an immediate and very palpable change from you. And I won't get into it too much because we'll kind of unpack how you changed. But from there on out, and so much props to you for reading the book and immediately recognizing what it was suggesting and implementing it. It was overnight and no looking back. And it was amazing. So this probably one book changed our marriage more than anything. We've read a lot of marriage books. This not marriage book was the one that did.
Yeah, I think this probably had the biggest effect on our marriage for sure.
Yeah.
So we'll break it down a little bit. So
Break it down.
Break it down.
Whoa.
So you got leadership. We're gonna forget about leadership. We're gonna talk about self-deception and what self-deception is. And essentially, the book, and also I'll just say the book is written as sort of an allegory. It's just a story, and it's in a business setting, and it's a story of people sort of interacting and these principles being taught. It's actually it's an interesting story. It does keep you engaged. Very easy to read. It's not very long. I will have a link in our description where you can, because it's on Amazon, you can still buy this book. It's still in print, and you probably, if you've ever seen it, you wouldn't even think this has to do with marriage. So I want to tell you to do it, or it has to do with relationships in general.
Yeah, because we actually have 2 copies because we recently last year bought 2 copies and made 2 of our teenagers read them.
Because they weren't getting along well, because they were stuck in self-deception.
They were, yeah.
In this book. So
they were stuck in the book.
They were. Also, I noticed I opened it up. I got it out of one of our kids' room. I went and found it. Look what it was using as a
oh my
bookmark.
gosh, this is what I'm talking about. This is a family legacy.
These kids are spoiled.
Wealth, generational wealth right here.
Well, if you're not watching, it's a $20 bill.
He's
He's
using
using
that
as his bookmark.
Oh my gosh,
I'm
who's
gonna steal
doing
this.
that?
I don't know.
Who's wealthy
I'm
enough?
not sure. It's either Peter or Asher, one of those two.
Wow.
Okay,
Not
so
getting that back.
so let's start up with.
Kidding about the generational wealth thing, by the way. I am amazed though.
So it starts with self-deception. And self-deception is when since you're in the mindset that and this is you and being in a relationship, I'm a reasonable person and the other person is the problem. Whenever there's an issue or something, some tense or conflicting, whatever, some moment, you essentially always see the other person as the issue. That's called self-deception. Because we know, I guess intellectually, that it's never completely one-sided.
I mean, it is, in our case, I'm always reasonable. And you read the book and realized you are not reasonable.
I know. This is what's good. Megan is reasonable, and I realized I was unreasonable, and it changed everything for us. That's only...
It's the best day of my life.
Partially true. So anyways, you see others as a problem. So that's kind of where the self-deception comes in. So there's leadership, self-deception, and then in the book, if you read it, it talks about being in the box. And being in the box is when you're essentially stuck in this sort of self-deception way of thinking.
Yeah.
And you can't really get out of it because you don't even realize that you're seeing things this way. And so the book highlights how you can recognize that you're being self-deceived and you're in the box.
Yeah, and I think that when you're in the box, like let's say in an argument or just in like a dynamic in your relationship, you think that the box is like your fortress. Like, I'm correct and they're not. So I have built this very correct structure.
Yeah.
And when they're ready, I will take down this fortress. I won't see it any other way because I'm correct. But really, the box is like a prison that you have constructed, and you can't move and you can't see anything clearly, and it's just got little tiny windows, and it's not actually a fortress.
Well, and it gives you the excuse to justify your bad behavior
Moving forward,
toward the other person because they deserve it or they caused the problem or whatever you want to call it. So there's a self-deception, there's being in the box, and then there's sort of the cycle that we get into while we're in the box. And when I read this book, and I think if you read the book, you realize, I am oftentimes in the box. I'm oftentimes I'm deceiving myself and placing blame on the other person, on my spouse in this scenario. And so you start to...
How far into it were you? Like, was it easy for you to not at first be like, Megan's totally in the box, until you're like, wait, I think I'm in the box too?
Because it's funny because the character in this book that's kind of being taught these things has that exact same arc where at first he's like, I know who's in the box. Because it's a manager kind of teaching another manager how to deal with his employees. And he's like, that lady who causes trouble at the office, she's in the box. She's the problem.
Yeah.
And then the other guy's like, no, she's not the problem. You're the problem. And so it shifts, and it's true. This is another thing about reading this book, is that if you read it and all you're thinking is other people who are in the box and how you're right and they're wrong, then you're missing the whole point.
Yeah.
The whole point is to look at yourself and say, you know what, these are the ways that I need to make some changes in how I think and see situations.
Yeah, and so the reason we ordered this for our teenagers is because we have Peter and Asher are less than a year apart. And none of our kids really argue very much.
Yeah.
They just all get along really well. But Peter and Asher are probably the most of all. And it's not like real fighting, but it's just constant. It was constant little bickering where it's like, well, he did this, so like it was really his fault. I'm like, but what did you do? And so I could never get them. They were always so reluctant to admit what they had done. I'm like, so if I bring him in right now and I ask him what he did, is he going to tell me a little bit different story? And he's like, I don't know, maybe, you know? And so we're like, you guys need to read this book. It's assignment. You must read this book, this chapter by the end of this week. And
I met with Asher and Peter, and we would go over the chapters and we talked about it. We did a little book club together.
And it helped.
It helped for a little while.
I think that they've gotten a lot better.
They have gotten better. Okay, so you can get in this cycle. So we'll kind of flesh this out just a little bit. So, for instance, Megan and I talked about this a little bit, but a common conflict that we can see that happens between husband and wife is what time is hubby getting home from work and what is he walking into when he comes home? We're
going to use this because we think it's pretty common.
Yeah, and this was common with us.
Yes, this was very common for us, and I think it's common for a lot of couples, is like agreed upon, these decisions you've agreed upon, like, or just like unspoken agreements of like when you get home and you know what time that is and what happens at that point, at that transition point. And we're just using that as like a way to explain, but it applies to all every
sorts
interaction.
Of situations. Yeah. So, for instance, it's getting near 5:00. I would usually, let's say I would usually get home at 5:30. And so Megan has been home all day with two toddlers, or not toddlers, but two little rambunctious boys. She's trying to keep it together as well as trying to do what she needs to do.
Make dinner.
And so, she's getting anxious for me to get home to kind of relieve some of that pressure.
Yeah, I think that there's a certain point of the day when you're like, okay, now you're like, it's kind of like your last hour of work is the longest, because you're like, oh my gosh, how long do I have? Like, okay, hold it together. Yeah. Hold it together. It's only 1 hour till 5:30,
Yeah. And so the tension is rising. I'm at work understanding there's some tension that's coming, that's sort of like starting to happen.
You mean that she wants you to get home?
Yeah, but now like there's something making me that I have to stay late for, or I have to stay longer for. And so essentially I'm not coming home when I thought I was going to, and I'm not arriving when you thought I was going to. So now there's going to be a tense moment, either over the phone or on purpose, when I get home. Okay, and it's kind of building. And so I come home, I can see that Megan is upset, and there's a couple options here. One is I could say, I'm so sorry, like I had to, this thing happened, the boss was requiring me to do this thing, or this thing had to get done, and I'm really sorry that I was late. And then Megan could respond with, that's okay, or I
like,
understand.
oh man,
Yeah,
like that must have been hard. You're ready to leave and wanted to come home, and then you had to stay longer.
yeah, but that's not usually how it
No,
went.
that's not what I would say.
So usually I would come home ready for sort of the ensuing fight that was going to happen.
Not a fight, but like
The disappointment.
Yeah.
And then me trying to
frustration.
defend why I wasn't there. And so when I get home, I have two choices. I can either try to apologize and try to help Megan feel better, but I might know or think in my mind, well, if I do that, she's probably still going to jump all over me and get angry. And so I'm actually going to be defensive ahead of time to like kind of keep my own dignity and to make sure I'm understood about where I'm coming from. And then that gets us in more of a conflictual, what's the word? A conflicted situation. And then she's angry, and now we're both kind of butting heads on this thing and only seeing it from our own perspective.
Yeah, because I'm thinking how hard I do believe we actually had a time where this happened, like a very particular time where, and I'm thinking, how hard was it for you to just let me know that you were going to be a half hour late?
Yeah.
Like, just call me. That's all I needed was a call. And so therefore you don't value my time.
Sure.
You don't, it's like, you don't give me that like 30-second phone call. This is before cell phones, even, texting, but like just to say, hey, I don't want to stay later, but I have to.
Right.
Or even more, I might say, why couldn't you just say to your boss, like, like you're putting your boss ahead of me.
Right.
You know, you're saying what he wants from you is more important than what I want from you.
Right.
That was common.
Yeah.
That was my common complaint. He always wins.
Right.
And then you're probably now feeling, what? Do you want me to like spit in his face and like throw my briefcase at him and say like, I will not stay, or, or like maybe the reason I didn't call, and you don't even appreciate that all day long I'm doing this thing I don't even want to do.
Yeah.
And, you get to stay at home with the kids, and I know it's hard, but like I have to go to this office and work with all these people I wouldn't really love to hang out with. And, so we're both just like building our fortress and building ourselves into our boxes and being like, I'm correct.
Yeah. And what you're more concerned about being right. You're more concerned about
being
kind of
understood,
winning or understood and validated that way than you are about trying to resolve it in some other way. So that is like the cycle you get in when you're in the box. And what that can do is that you start seeing, you're sort of in this cycle of like this negative reaction, and then you responding to their negative reaction, and you're both just seeing each other negatively, and you're no longer seeing each other as people.
Yeah. So like, let's say if we keep this story, Mike comes home, I'm frustrated, and I've now decided he doesn't value me. And then maybe we make dinner, and at dinner he's like barely mentally there. Now, if we go back to what happened to him that day, and if I had seen it a different way, maybe he's barely mentally there because it was really stressful what just happened. And then he had to come home into our house that's maybe chaotic. And I'm saying, look at him. He's not even here. Like when he's home, he's not even here with us. He's thinking about something else. He values what he's building at work more than he values me. So like I keep building that fortress.
Yeah.
I keep putting myself back in that box. And then like everything he does, if he can tell I'm frustrated, I mean, he doesn't say, well, how are you? How was your day? I'm like, what a self-centered guy. He doesn't care about my needs.
Yeah.
And like he's not picking up the kids that quickly, or when he does, he's getting frustrated with them and like, well, look at you. If I acted like that, I'd be a terrible parent or whatever, and so you're just seeing everything from that. And then how would you stay in the box in that?
Well, I would think, oh, Megan doesn't appreciate what I've had to go through today. She's just angry. I'm trying to help, but
messy.
She,
It's definitely messy.
I'm walking into a messy house. What has she done all day? Or I am trying to help, but you're frustrated with me helping. And so you're just in this negative cycle, and you're seeing each other negatively,
Yeah.
and you're both responding to that, and it becomes almost goggles that you're seeing what
Yes.
they do. And it may not be quite that intense all the time, but I think what can happen is that over time, you just develop a general way of seeing the other person. Sometimes some positivity will peek through.
Yeah.
But the negativity might be outweighing that, and
It's almost like you keep the goggles on the top of your head or whatever, and you like slide them down.
Yeah.
Like, here we go. He's right. I get it. You get right back into the box of them.
Yeah.
And you start interpreting. In fact, my sister sent me this fascinating thing. She sent this to me this week, and it fascinating as we were preparing for this. Let me see. About what's actually happening scientifically in your brain. So, because of a term called neuroplasticity, the brain constantly rewires itself based on repeated thoughts and behaviors. The neural pathways you activate most often become stronger and easier to access over time. And so your brain isn't just like something that's like, there's a word there and I pull it out. There's the thought patterns actually show up as pathways in your brain. Think about the grooves on a record.
Right.
That the record player follows along and it plays a tune. You have literal pathways that your neurotransmitters, the electricity, runs along. And it's called neuroplasticity. The more you do those thoughts, have those thoughts, the more you see your husband as self-centered, the more you're going to think that he's self-centered, and you're going to notice things that you will interpret as data to prove that he's self-centered.
Right.
So it says, when complaining, for instance, becomes a frequent habit, you repeatedly activate circuits involved in problem detection and threat awareness. The brain adapts by becoming more efficient at scanning for flaws, frustrations, and disappointments. Like, you get really good at seeing your spouse's flaws.
Yeah.
You get really
I'm super
good at seeing disappointments in the world in general. This pattern is connected to what psychologists call negativity bias. The tendency to focus more on negative experiences than positive ones. And so each complaint can act like a rehearsal. Research in cognitive psychology shows that repetitive negative thinking is linked to higher stress hormone levels, including cortisol. Over time, this may reduce emotional resilience and make it harder to access balanced or optimistic interpretations of events.
Right.
Because that's the other thing. Your feelings are just an interpretation of fact. They actually aren't the fact. I felt frustrated, and I felt unseen. I felt unappreciated when he didn't call to tell me that he was going to be home 30 minutes late. But that's not a fact. I can't prove in a court of law that he doesn't appreciate me. I can't actually reach into his brain and see if he does not appreciate me. But I feel that's my interpretation of that moment. So the brain is not fixed. It responds to repetition. What you focus on consistently becomes the pattern your brain expects, and over time, that pattern shapes how you experience everyday life. Okay.
Yeah.
When we were talking about this, and then I got that, and I read it just actually this morning. Thank you, Chelsea, for sending that. Meant to be. It was terrifying to me. It was terrifying to me because I realized that you could literally get in a box with your spouse over something. And it's one evening, maybe you don't make up that well.
Right.
Or you don't really forgive them.
Okay.
And you keep those negative thoughts about them. And then the next day, maybe it's okay, but the day after that, something happens, and you once again interpret, and you make this groove, and you make this groove, and you make this groove. You can literally make these grooves that just dismantle this once blossoming, happy, loving relationship.
Yeah.
Through just neuroplasticity. It's actually not even true. And you have just, but they're going to have real, like, visceral response to this. You're going to have stress hormones. You're going to feel bad, and you're going to be so hyper aware of all of the evidence to support why you are in that box.
Right.
But none of it is necessarily true.
Right.
Now we have a caveat.
Yeah, there's always an asterisk here.
We should, and it's really important. This does not include any sort of abuse ever. Okay. I mean, ever. That's not an interpretation. That's a fact.
No one
Abuse
deserves
is a
that
fact,
ever.
right? That's horrible.
Yeah.
And it also it gets a little bit more complex when you're dealing with a spouse that has compulsive or addictive behaviors. So I know that some of you are like, yeah, but my spouse, it's like, listen, we're talking about complaints about what time you're arriving home. We're talking about feeling valued or not. Like, we're in the normal range, right? So I don't want anybody to interpret this in any way
that they should, that they can rationalize
that it's
bad
their fault
behavior
that
like
their
that.
spouse is abusing them.
Right. So don't take that.
But for the rest of us that are in fairly normal relationships, you will start to believe you're not in a fairly normal relationship because you've literally created grooves of incredibly efficient negative thinking.
And it's real easy.
And destroy a marriage that you once felt so much joy in.
Right. And that's interesting in this book. This is sort of a side story, is that not only is this gentleman learning about how to deal with this at work, but he's realizing that he's been treating his wife this way and she's been treating him this way.
Yeah.
That's the thing. You both get into it and you both get into your boxes and it's just you're stuck.
Yeah, it's actually a lot easier if you both get into your boxes, isn't it?
What do you mean easier?
It's easier to stay in the box if the
sure.
other person gets into their box.
Well, and that's the point. Like, part of the solution is obviously getting out of the box. So we're going to talk about how you do that.
Yeah, but I mean, if one spouse never gets into the box, it's not as effective.
No, it's less likely to become
stuck.
quite that stuck.
Yeah.
But that, I mean, and obviously this is general life advice, is to be careful about seeing things negatively in your life in general, because the more you see it that way, the more you're going to see it that way.
Yeah.
And so you try to start training yourself to see things in a positive light in general.
And how wild is that you could really be that far off of reality?
So essentially you get into the box, you get into this cycle. They call it collusion in the book, where essentially you and your spouse or you and another person are sort of in this kind
tit
of
for tat.
Yeah, you're in this death spiral of around each other in your boxes, and it's hard to get out of.
You both got stories.
Yeah, where like you sort of you see your spouse negatively, you treat them that way, they respond negatively, so they confirm your feeling in the first place, and then it repeats over and over again, and you're stuck there.
Yeah.
Because both of you are like stuck.
Yeah. So you read this book when Andrew was a baby and Elijah was probably in kindergarten. And I remember you reading it, and it didn't take you very long, and something changed in you. I think we always felt like we were very well matched, and I don't think we thought we argued a lot as a couple.
No.
Because you hang out with other newlywed couples, young couples, and you're like, oh, well, we're doing okay. You know, they're arguing a lot. But I don't think it's almost like we didn't know how much we were doing it until you read the book and you just stopped.
Well, and a lot of it for me, different people are different personalities, obviously, but for me, I was doing a lot of this internally.
Yeah, you're not a confrontational guy.
I'm not very confrontational. I'm not going to bring things up that are bothering me that often. So I realized that I was actually harboring a lot of resentment and negative feelings for all sorts of different situations that I wasn't letting go of, or that I was kind of holding you accountable for, that was unnecessary.
That was creating a box for you.
So yeah, and I think it was creating a general feeling of not the kind of unity and warmth that we
because I could tell you were
had.
frustrated, but I didn't know why. And then you were like, no, I'm not mad. And I'm like,
Yeah.
well, he's really C-Mag. You're like, well, I'm not.
Yeah,
I'm like, well,
I know.
now you C-Mag. You're like, well, I'm only mad because you said that, Mike is so
man.
non-confrontational that we had a lot of that conversation right there.
We did. So it opened my eyes to where I was in the box, and the solution that the book proposes is it isn't about any sort of skill. It really is very basic. It comes down to seeing the person as another person, and also taking responsibility for your role in whatever the conflict is. Because there is no conflict, even the thinnest pancake has two sides. There's, once again, outside of any sort of abusive situation or anything like that, there's no conflict that doesn't have two sides. And taking ownership of my part in that, even if it's just feelings, and realizing I've misjudged her, or I have not seen her as a person in this scenario. I've just seen her as
Or
an obstacle.
Or an unreasonable person.
Or sure, an unreasonable person, someone who doesn't really understand or doesn't care. And taking back the responsibility, saying, you know what, I have responsibility for this. And she's a person. She has, and these all make sense. And we all know, again, intellectually, this is true. But I think we can unwittingly take our spouse out of the person category and put them into the
villain.
Correct. The villain or the obstacle or some other category other than just a person. And I started to have my eyes open like, oh man, I have really been putting Megan kind of into her box and then being in my own box when I just need to say, you know what, Megan's a person. She's had a hard day just like I have, or, you know, she's
a young
these
mom.
things, and I have a responsibility to make sure that I see her as a person. And that's where it all started for me.
Yeah, and I think you actually had some practice in this because you did something like this in high school.
Yeah, it's true. I didn't realize I was doing this, but I'll share a story about my sister and I. I have a little sister. She's the youngest child of 5. She's the only girl, and me and her were the last 2. And Laura and I, should I not say her name to protect the innocent? Laura and I, we were typical siblings, but
you were only 2 years apart.
We would fight, or we would have lots of disagreements, and I would tease her and she would tease me, but it was a little beyond what was
good-natured.
Good. Yeah. I was just mean a lot of times, and she would be mean back, and we were definitely in this sort of relationship where we only saw the other person for their negative traits and responded in kind. And so my mom one day was like, you know what, Michael, if you want this situation to be fixed, because I think she was just tired of hearing us fight, honestly. And
yeah,
I think
I know
my
that
dad
feeling.
was too. She's like, you're going to have to be the older one, you know, you're older than her. You're going to have to just decide to be nice and to never respond in a mean way to Laura. And she said, I think that'll fix it for you. So my mom really deserves the credit. And so I decided, you know what, and this was probably when I was 16 or 17. It's funny, we were still doing it at that age. And I thought, I'm just going to be nice. No matter what Laura does, I will be nice. And I don't care what happens, but I'm going to be nice. And so I made that decision. Laura didn't know I'd made that decision. So she was kind of working under the same...
She was still in the box.
Yeah, she was in the box. So the one memory I have that happened is one thing Laura loved to do, because I like to wear a hat, I wore my ball cap all the time, and she loved to flip it off my head.
Just to bug you.
Just to bug me. And I would lose it. I would get really mad when she'd do that, because she just be having to walk by and she'd like knock it on my head.
Like while you're sitting there.
While I'm sitting, you know, minding my own business. But I'd probably done like 5 mean things to her earlier in the day. So, you know, it was a tit for tat situation. So I remember we were actually out to eat. We're like McDonald's or something like that. And Laura steps.
Brought to you by McDonald's.
Where families come together. No, Laura gets up to like go to the bathroom or something. I don't know. And she walks by me and she does the thing. She hits my hat off my head. And I just sort of like did like the Serenity Now sort of thing. I
am a Halloween.
I leaned over, picked up my hat, put it back on, and no response in any way. And then this went on for, I don't know, weeks. I don't think it was months, where she kept on doing these things and I just wouldn't respond. And then I remember one day we were driving home from school. I was driving and we were just the two of us. And she's like, she's Michael, why are you being so nice to me all the time? And I said, well, I'm just kind of tired of us fighting and I don't want us to fight anymore. And she's like, oh, okay. And then that was it. It was over.
That's crazy.
We were
That's a sweet story.
Very friendly with each other and had a very good relationship and still do.
And then you got that dang girlfriend and ruined it all.
I know. Well, that's a whole nother story. That
was me.
Megan's talking about herself.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I did this, and it's a little microcosm for what happened in our relationship. So I read the book, and I decided I will see Megan as a person from now on, and I will take responsibility for my part in whatever conflict there is. And it really did. And I don't think it was me doing anything huge. I was following the instructions of this book, and it really did change our relationship. And I really do feel like it put us on a path of a positive relationship that we still enjoy today. And it only got better over time.
Yeah, because we got better at it. And you it was almost like you laid down your internal weapons of war. It
that's
was
true.
just like all of a sudden I noticed a shift in you, because when you're in the box, you start to do things to accumulate almost like evidence. So
Yeah.
like, here I am doing the dishes because he doesn't care and he
Yeah.
didn't get up to do the dishes, or like, here I am vacuuming the floors while she's sitting on the couch because she doesn't care, you know?
Yeah.
And so you're doing this and you can kind of both feel the tension. But then he read the book and he just said, I think you said something to me like, I'm just going to do what I need to do because it's right. And I'm not going to worry about like keeping score or
Right.
what you're doing.
Because that is part of being in the box is keeping score. You're sort of telling like what you did
To prove that you're
either for the
good or
family
better.
or whatever. But it's true.
And I don't think we ever admitted we were keeping score, but you have a little moments you're like, well, I did it last night. I think it's your turn. Or like, hey, don't forget, because you would come home and be like, so what'd you do today? And I'd be like, well, I've got my list. Let me tell you. First of all, Elijah cut all of his hair off while I was going to the bathroom. And then
man.
Andrew puked all over the couch. So then I had to clean that, and we were trying to go to the dentist, so like I would have my list ready.
Yeah.
Because I'm keeping score because I know you're keeping score,
Yeah.
so we can constantly prove, and then we're both like, all right, that seems justified.
Yeah.
This mess seems justified. I will allow it
Yeah.
without being angry or something. But you changed, and all of a sudden you just came home and it was like, I am here as a person, and I'm going to do what I need to do because out of like what I think is right and just and kind, like to be a good person. And I'm going to be a good husband. And I'm not going to only do it as long as you're being a good wife or something.
okay.
And I just noticed that.
Yeah. And then also I'm going to recognize that your feelings are just as valid as mine.
Yeah.
And your situation is just as valid as mine.
Yeah. Which is so crazy because when we were talking about it, we have done it for so long now that I can't believe there was a time when you didn't treat me like that and I didn't treat you like that. So thank you. Because we don't, whatever we do get tense sometimes and we get frustrated, but it is very short lived because we're also pretty good at immediately your brain can start to work out like, wait a second, Megan, can you see how he might feel that way? Because ...
Well, this is what it says in the book, which is to be always evaluating whether you're either in the box or getting in the box.
Yeah. Because then I was saying to Michael that, you have these grooves, this neuroplasticity in your brain. And when you move away from it, it becomes much easier not to go to it. But it's always available to you.
Sure.
It doesn't disappear. And I was comparing it to giving up sugar. I gave up sugar a few years back. And man, is it hard at first. And you don't realize how many ways you love having sugar in your life, and you're using it for coping, and you're using it for celebrating, you're using it for all of these things. And like, oh, I guess if I can't have sugar and flour, I can't have this. And so that first month is kind of brutal, right? But then after that, everything goes quiet because you've made new pathways in your brain. So it gets easier and easier and easier not to have sugar. And so now I don't even think about it. I can interact with sugar and all of that. But it's still there. And I know that if I started to eat sugar again, then it would be like, light them up, boys, she's back. All the doom, 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 turning all the lights on, and those pathways are back. I know that would happen. And I think it's the same way with our relationship. We'll have a moment where you'll say something and I'll feel like, well, that was unjustified, or I don't think that was very sensitive to what I'm feeling, that's not what I wanted to talk about or do right now. And it's like that pathway is suddenly like, whoa.
Yeah.
And it's there.
Right.
But after years of practicing it, you're like, I could totally go down. I see that it's there. And you kind of feel like this,
Yeah, some tension.
And then you're like, okay, let me take a deep breath. I often say a prayer at that moment just that I will stay reasonable and mature. And I'll be like, okay, yeah, okay. That's a good point. Yeah, okay. And I'm not immediately trying to argue, well, I want you to think about where I was coming from. Did you think of that?
Yeah. Well, I think this is a big part of it, which is this sort of naturally happens, which is you resist going into defensive mode.
Yeah.
As
you
part
can
of this.
feel it. You can feel like, dum, 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 like I'm ready to fight.
Right. As soon as you're metaphorically put your dukes up, the other person is probably going to do the same thing.
Now, but that's why I was saying, if one of you refuses to get in the box, and I put my dukes up, and you're like, no, I'm not at all trying to upset you right now. In fact, I probably should have started that way. Tell
Yeah.
me what you were feeling.
Yeah, let me back up.
It's not, it's like, oh, I'm kind of embarrassed that my dukes are up now.
I don't need these.
You know, or you start to, and the other person's like, hey, it's
Yeah.
okay. I really didn't.
Put down your weapons of war.
Yes, then it's not as, you know, kind of like with Mike and his sister Laura.
And so I think that's part of what defines how we stay out of the box is we both, and this is so much of this is just taking responsibility for your own emotions and your kind of thoughts and feelings. Like I own them, therefore I can control them and I can rein them in. They are not making me mad. I'm choosing to get mad. Or they're not attacking me. I'm choosing to get defensive. And so I own that, and then we resist the defensive posture. Because you know, as soon as you know with your spouse or people in your relationship, as soon as someone gets defensive, like the tone changes, the words change.
The lighting in the room
Yeah, everything changes. But if you stay relaxed, if you stay open, you stay open to their feelings and willing to consider what they're saying without being defensive, it can make a situation go over so much better, and neither of you gets in your box.
Now, I will say, we've still gotten in the box.
Sure.
In the 20 years since that. But what helps us is to avoid the neuroplasticity where, because everybody gets in the box.
Sure.
Momentarily
Yeah.
for an hour or something like that, right? That's just part of being, you know, a imperfect human.
Yeah.
But if you've practiced it enough, you know, sometimes you get in that box because there's such high levels of stress, like during a move or something.
Right. We've had stressful times where it happens.
You're very tired. You're very hungry.
Once when we were at I think we were at an RV park, and there was like a mug or something that said like, "I'm sorry for what I said when I was backing in the RV." That is like classic, like high stress moment. You can witness it in RV park, spouses yelling at each other when they're trying to get the RV in place. So yes, these stressful moments.
The way you stay in the box after those things is say like, well, you know what? You this or you that, and like I don't think you understood where I was coming from. That's why I was acting that way. Getting out of the box is I'm sorry for how, you know, there's a lot of funny reels about this, but how crazy I was last night. You know, you wake up the next morning like, that was totally inappropriate. Now, I'm not saying you can just dismiss all bad behavior, but you should take full responsibility for, I was not listening to where you were coming from. You had good points and I was just defensive, and I'm really sorry about that. And I'm ready to listen to what you wanted to say now that I've kind of calmed down.
Well, and that highlights what changes that you go from the goal is to win the argument to my goal is to understand where they're coming from, essentially. So that's when that shift happens. You're like, I'm sorry. Let's talk about it so I can understand what's happening. We can solve this thing rather than how do I win here? Yeah. So
and how do I keep building this fortress that to prove that I'm in a bad marriage and I'm a saint and he is a villain, you know, or a monster or, you know, a million other things.
Well, and I think what that can ultimately create is when you're doing the right thing is that you actually become a team. You start to recognize we're on the same team. There are things that can make us stressed or upset or feel conflict, but ultimately we are on the same team. We're sort of in our own box, but it's a good kind of box where we're together, we're united, and that can help to get through those and to see each other on that level rather than in your separate places.
Yeah.
So
well, and if we go back to the neuroplasticity thing, it like really, I felt like I was looking over a chasm when you contemplate that you could unwittingly, just through like literal bad habits, rewire your brain and distort your ability to see reality through this being in this box and, you know, just like negative thoughts. And I realized how like almost like sacred a duty it is to protect your brain and to work hard at having a brain where the pathways you have deep grooves in are gratitude, appreciation for others, empathy for others, wisdom, you know, like just the ability to question yourself,
Right.
your emotions.
Yeah, to
like
look
you put
critically
in a
at what
lot
you're
of
thinking.
pathways of where you're going now.
Yeah.
Do I have any real reason to feel that? Could I prove that in a court of law?
Right.
Is that actually true? And that's almost like a sacred duty you have, because you can become the actual villain yourself through making these deep grooves of pessimism and distortion,
Right.
just distortion. And so I thought, in the comments of this, people are like, this is why you shouldn't watch the news, or like, what are they called? The like murder podcast, crime podcast. You don't have a brain that you can categorize over here. And then now I'm going to put my nice brain into my skull.
Right.
You have one brain. And if you are putting in pathways of I think Bill Maher called it panic porn. The news is like panic porn or fear porn or something, where you're like, oh my gosh, the world is falling apart.
But you're getting a hit off
You're
of
getting,
it.
and you're deepening this groove of panic and distrust for the world and pessimism. And so then you're going to go to the grocery store and you're going to be like, that person over there looked at me and they were rude. And like, man, this world is it's falling to pieces. And then you're going to say, your husband's going to say something. You're going to be like, what is that? So you have to be very vigilant in making sure, just like you make sure that you're getting enough fiber in your diet and you're getting enough water and you're getting enough sleep, that you're protecting your ability to see things as they really are.
Right.
And not as they feel like they are. And I felt like, wow, I need to make sure that I am spending time appreciating. You walk out the door, you see the weather, and you think, no matter what it is, I should deepen the groove in my brain of appreciation. So you look out and you say, oh, wow, this must mean that April showers bring May flowers. So March ones probably bring April flowers. Because if I do the appreciation groove in my brain there.
The appreciation groove. That sounds like some kind of dance.
That's my next album. The appreciation groove. But if I do that groove there for appreciation, I wire my brain that appreciation is something I feel. I'm going to be more appreciative of you when you bring the trash cans in from the curb, as he always does, and I'm so grateful for. And I watch the neighbor's husband do it too. I appreciate the neighbor's husband doing it. I'm like, wow, that's a really nice. He just always does that, Or I will appreciate what a good parking job Mike does, that he's such a good driver. Or you learn to wire your brain for appreciation. And here's the thing: not only does it make for a better marriage, but it makes for a better life.
Yeah.
Like, who wants to go through life being that person who's wired their brain for pessimism and for seeing everything that you become like genius level at noticing the worst in everything all of the time? And I promise you, we all know somebody like that, and it's devastating for them. Because, like, no matter what, you can be like, look at this. And they're like, well, this.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's sad. Because you can't even feel joy, can you? You can't even feel the beauty of this moment. I don't want to do that in any way. And I should really work hard to deepen the positive grooves.
Right.
Deepen the positive pathways in my brain so that I can feel more joy. And as a couple, we can feel more joy. And then our children.
Right. Well, this is the upshot.
Yeah.
Is that your children, and this is how it helps a family, is your children get to see a happy, loving couple as their parents, and they also get to see how to deal with conflict and with other people in a healthy and what's the word? I don't want to say righteous, but like the kind way to deal with people, which is to see them as people.
Yeah.
And you can teach them, like we did with our two boys, how to see each other as people. And so it can branch out from you to many households that there's a good way to deal with each other and to help each other.
Yeah, because the more you practice it and choose to be calm with your spouse and choose to be calm with the person that's maybe being unjust at the grocery store, when you choose to be calm over here, the more you practice it, the better you get. Yeah. The thing is, I am naturally a more emotional responder. I am confrontational. And so I don't want anybody thinking that I think in a way, Mike, you do come by it naturally. You aren't confrontational, so you can hide your frustration better. I am just like, what did you just say? There's like Amy Poehler talking about how she's kind of like that. I identify with that, but I don't want to be that person. But we've had times at the grocery store where I'm like, no, wait, what? Like when they ring us up and something weird, and I'm like, no, that that doesn't make sense. And Mike's like, it's $1 difference. It's fine. That happened in our past, if you recall. We're buying those onesies.
Oh, I forgot about that. You're right. Okay.
And I didn't respond well, but like you get lots of practice and it changes. Like you can take someone who's genius level negative thinker and they can slowly practice gratitude and appreciation and courtesy and rewire their brain. Your brain is plastic.
Yeah. Nothing is set in stone in your brain.
No, you can rewire your brain. If people can get in major car accidents and be unable to move and then learn to walk and eventually run, you can go from being a negative thinker to a positive thinker. That's why I worry when people are like, I'm a pessimist or I'm an optimist. It's like, well, you just decided to be that because we can be whatever we want.
Yeah.
Or like, that same is true. I'm an introvert or an extrovert. I don't know that that's super helpful to just constantly be wiring your self into, I'm this, I'm this, I'm this. Your brain is very plastic. You can become a different personality type. And when people are like, I'm just being true to myself, it's like, well, I think that you might not want to be. You might want to be true to a higher self. You might want to be true to virtue. You might want to be true to gratitude, to courtesy, to integrity, to kindness, because what you are is just pathways.
Right.
Like so often, right? And so, speak your truth. It's like, but we don't know what the truth is because of the pathways in our brain. So like
you're saying even if it's rude or
be very careful. Yeah. Be very careful. And so you might want to err on the side of courtesy and kindness and optimism. All of these messages of like, you've got to like be your truth or like, all of these stuff about self. And I'm kind of going off topic here, but like, I think it bleeds into the marriage relationship where it's like, that's just who I am. It's like, well, you aren't. I mean, that's the wild thing about the brain. People can get like in an accident and wake up from a coma, like speaking with an accent or knowing languages that they never knew. So when you're like, well, that's just who I am, that's not a true statement completely. You can make yourself different. You can change your personality. And so it's like, that might be kind of scary because then you're like, well, then what am I? It's like, exactly. So you should probably find a North Star and say, this is the kind of person I want to be. And it's a kind person. It's a wise person. It's a logical person. It's a person that's easy to be around because they're thoughtful and they think about where you're coming from, all of these things. And then bonus, you'll actually feel really happy. You'll have all sorts of...
Your quality of life
will go way up. So, yeah, I guess I'm obviously just got on a soapbox. I need to calm down a little bit.
That was good. Well, I think because you have to be intentional about it because it's funny, the easier path for most of us is to just go down the negative route. I remember there's this old skit from Portlandia where he goes in and he's suffering from early onset grumpiness.
Yeah, that's such a good skit.
Fred Armisen.
Armisen. Yeah.
And Armisen. It's a really good it's a good skit. You should go look it up. But it's this guy who's not very old, but he's already being a grumpy old man essentially. And it's true, you can get there. And there was once upon a time where I was getting there. I was getting kind of grumpy and a little bit of
this was like 6 years ago.
A curmudgeon, like Megan talked about before with Matt Walsh. And Megan's like, hey, I don't really want to be married to a grumpy old man. So,
well, because it was like, it started as your shtick. Like, I don't want anybody coming over and I don't want to go to this church activity and see a bunch of people.
I had a negative attitude.
Like, I hate going to things. I hate talking to people. It was like a shtick at first. It was like kind of a joke. But then it was like all the time.
Starts to come true.
And then it's like, why are they coming over to our house? I don't want anybody coming over. And I'm like, and I said to you, I'm like, I'm sorry that I didn't sign up for this. I'm not interested in this, in being married to a grumpy old man who hates everybody.
Yeah.
Like, I guess it's kind of funny, but it's also, I don't know if you're joking anymore.
Yeah.
And maybe you are, but maybe you don't even realize. And
so
true to Mike, overnight, you stop being grumpy. He's so good at changing.
Well,
I'm so good at changing.
Problem. I'm good at changing the wrong way too.
No, that's not true.
But you have to be careful you're not kind of slipping into that. And I'm sure, and the thing is, we're going to.
Yeah.
We're all going to dip into that, even at our best. We're going to dip into that every once in a while. And maybe some of you are completely stuck in it, or you feel like you are.
Yeah.
You're not actually stuck in it. You can get out of it.
Well, something I realized I was doing, I'll own up to one. I had cancer last fall, and everything becomes cancer.
You always got to bring that up.
Did I tell you, as a breast cancer survivor? No, I had cancer, and obviously that is very traumatic. It's traumatic in the moment. It's traumatic. I mean, it's like traumatic for months. And there's lots of layers to work through. But you're making grooves of trauma.
Right.
You're making grooves of like where you feel afraid, you feel vulnerable, you feel, and like it's unavoidable because it is very traumatic.
Sure. Yeah,
I'm not saying
definitely.
that I should have been like, I'm happy to
Yeah.
have cancer and it doesn't bother me at all that I might die. You know, like, that doesn't bother me at all that you're shoving these things in and it hurts, you know, like, of course, like, I mean, you're going to experience that. But I realized really in the last couple weeks, I was still carrying a lot. And I wasn't feeling like myself. And so I was in that kind of like, I don't know what's wrong with me. I still feel broken. And I like asked ChatGPT like what the timeline is after. And it's like, this is very normal. And I'm like, see, I'm in the normal broken cancer mode. But then as we started preparing for this, I'm like, hey, I've made grooves in my brain where I tell myself I'm powerless and that I'm going to feel broken. But I can control that. I can decide to like, no. When that opens up and I want to get into the box of like, I went through something very traumatic and it changed me, I can say, no, I'm not going to do that. I don't want to do that anymore. I think I can now put that down.
Yeah.
I can lay down those weapons, you know, or it's more like I can let myself out of that prison. And you've been so kind and supportive through it all and understanding. But I realized that I needed to take responsibility a little bit more for myself. And maybe that sounds like some harsh medicine, but it doesn't feel good to feel that way. And when I was reminded that feelings aren't real, the feelings that I went through are sometimes uncontrollable, and I felt brave, but I still had those grooves from months of the trauma of cancer. And so now I'm just like kind of feeling broken all the time. It's like, hey, Megan, it's time now to, when you start to feel that way, say, nope, I'm not going to do that. And even in just the last week, it's gotten a lot better because I've stopped telling myself that story that I'm not the same as I was before. Like, because I was saying that for, I guess, 4 months now. Like, I don't feel the same. I feel like it changed me. I don't identify with who I used to be. And like, I'm some victim to it, and that is outside of me. And I'm grateful for the reminder that our brains are plastic. They're very bendable. They're very moldable. And that it's time now to work on new grooves in my brain, new pathways that say like, I'm fine. I don't need to be afraid. I don't need to feel disconnected. Those are just feelings. They're not reality. I'm not actually disconnected from myself. That was a reaction to the cancer. And now, just like somebody learning to walk and practicing every day, taking steps to remind, you know, the muscle memory, I now need to learn to be positive again. I need to learn that I am myself, that there's nothing dangerous. And so that was kind of vulnerable, but...
Well, it's a real situation. I think a lot of people go through that. And it also highlights, and you sort of said it, but so many of these grooves sort of show up as stories that we're telling ourselves. And that's the thing to pay attention to is what are the stories I'm telling myself? Because that's what they are. They're just stories that you're telling yourself about a situation or about a person.
And a marriage might be like, he regrets being married to me. Or I don't please him. Or he doesn't listen to me. Or he doesn't find me attractive, or, you know, I'm just thinking of all of the things that I've heard myself say or heard other wives say to me. You know, we don't get along as well as other couples do. We don't have as much in common as this couple does. We aren't as good a match. All of these things, these are just stories you're telling yourself. And you have to be very careful because you're creating these pathways where you're going to get evidence after you tell yourself that story that supports that story. And then it's going to really, really cause some conflict. Collusion.
Well, and a huge part of the solving the problem, and because we're not suggesting that you shouldn't have, there won't be conflict, and you shouldn't have conversations to let your spouse know that this is something that you're either not happy about or you're you know, you want to have changed. We're not saying you just roll over and your spouse or partner gets to do whatever they want and they kind of walk all over you. But what you're doing is, because I think a lot of what happens is the stories that Megan's talking about, you're saying to yourself, maybe you should say those to your spouse.
Yes.
And say, this is what I'm struggling with.
I know
because
it's probably not
so
true,
many of
but
us,
yeah.
I think, do suffer with these stories inside, and we're just like working on all this negativity. It's like, have you said that to your spouse and let them know that you're feeling that way? And so many people don't, because they think, well, they probably won't respond very well. They're not going to be happy with that, or I don't want the conflict. It's like, just say the thing. You say it in a way that is respectful to them and yourself, but you see each other as humans, and we want to solve this problem, and we do it by sharing the stories that we might be telling ourselves. Sometimes we just got to let go of stuff that's just maybe not valid. But
yeah, if we go back to the story of the boss keeping you after work and me being frustrated, the conversation still needs to happen.
Yeah.
Where I say like, oh my gosh, like, instead of saying like, why does he always win over me? You could say, it's so hard for me because I'm very overwhelmed and I really count on that time. Is there anything you could do? Like,
is there any solution here?
Yeah, like, do you think, I understand you really don't have a lot of power in this situation, but like, I feel powerless too, and I don't even know about it. So
Right.
I have like, I'm like, could you just like text me an emoji of like a little devil face? So I know that your boss is being a jerk and keeping you a devil face and a clock, or a devil face and 20 minutes. Like, when your boss says, hey, I'm going to need you to stay after, like, just real quick. Sure, that sounds great. You send that text to me and I'm like, oh man, poor Mike. So then I say poor Mike instead of poor me. Mike doesn't care about me,
Yeah.
We still have these conversations, but you come into the conversation saying, so one of our most common lines that we say is, I know it's probably not true, but I feel like ...
Right.
Or like, I know it's probably a crazy thing to think, but lately it seems like ... So that I am admitting I'm not seeing everything.
Right.
But I also want you to know what I'm struggling with.
Right.
And so then they can be like, oh, well, yeah, like I don't feel that way at all. And I'm like, well, this is why I felt that way. But you're always keeping outside of that box so that you were like, I know you're a person and you probably have a really good story. I just need to hear the story.
Yeah.
I need to hear why you were late. I need to hear why you looked so despondent at dinner, when I needed you, or I needed, and then they can say, well, let me tell you what I'm carrying. And you're like, oh, I'm so sorry. That's so heavy,
Yeah. Well, you stay away from using the words always and never. Like, you always do this or you never do that, because neither of those things are actually true. And
or you're saying stuff like, well, it seems like a lot of the time.
Yeah. You say it feels like. Anyways, that's getting a little more granular. But in general, what you're doing is you're seeing each other as people, and you're treating each other as such. And the goal is to understanding, not to win. And it really does help you to get out of some of these negative cycles. And it might be that one spouse has to take the lead.
Yep.
Or maybe in a work scenario or any other relationship.
With a child.
Oh yeah, with the child, you might have to take the lead and be the one who's working on it. Most people are going to then recognize that, and they will start making changes in that direction.
Mm-hmm. But you're not actually doing it if you're like giving them a timeline.
No, that's the thing.
If you're like, well, I'll be good, but if they don't respond in 3 days, then I'm gonna lose it, and it'll be proof. It's like, well, then you weren't actually.
I know.
You were still keeping
It has
score.
to be done without really.
You're just
any
done. That's it forever.
Yeah.
You're going to treat them as a person who probably has good reason for doing what they're doing, or at least some reason for doing forever.
Yeah.
And you will find that they will change, and you will change, and you will start to go, oh my gosh, I was ... I had no idea how that was coming across and how self-centered I was being. And I want to end with this because I want to do a podcast on it, but I'm also kind of scared to do a podcast on it. But I feel like we've gotten to a space here, if you're still listening, that you believe us. No, this is a safe space.
We can say whatever we want, you believe us.
If you want to talk to about neuroplasticity, the craziest change for me, I grew up with deep pathways and grooves of seeing men as bad, and believing this worldview that like men were very flat and bad. I believed I got in a good one, and that I knew a few good ones, but that for the most part men were bad, and I had all sorts of evidence, and it was constantly confirmed. But about 6-7 years ago, I kind of stopped and realized that like I had gotten myself into some weird places with that I didn't anticipate it leading me. And I spent the last 7 years now rewiring my brain and it has been a wild experience. And I want to do a podcast on how I learned to love men and how it's made my life so much better. Which
sounds interesting.
I know that sounds really weird, but it's such a crazy thing to talk about, but it has been such a blessing to me to rewire my brain to love and appreciate men everywhere I go. And what a wild thing it's been, because I suddenly feel like everywhere I go, there are great men all the time. And I feel so lucky to live in this world with so many great men. I don't know.
That'll be another one.
Yeah, I'll do that someday. I'm just like, I'm putting it out there as like I'm going to talk about it. I'm going to tell you guys all about it, and it's going to be wild, and there's going to be lots of really mean comments. And I'm going to spend days going, why did I do that podcast?
You're going to have the vulnerability hangover.
Oh, I have it every week. But
okay, I want to throw one more thing out there that related to this is another relationship that can improve from doing this is the relationship between you and your children. Because what I found as I've implemented some of this and turning toward my children in this way is that you lose your temper less often. Because I think it's easy as a parent to just, like, if your kid spills the milk, to snap, because why did they do that? They were probably doing something they shouldn't have been doing, and they made that happen. I told
you to settle down.
Or they broke something, they lost something, they didn't do a job right, whatever, you can fill in the blank. But as I've looked at my children as people and myself as a person, when they spill the milk, I say, oh, yeah, actually, I remember last week I spilled something too, because we all spill something every once in a while. And we all drop something every once in a while.
Do. Break
and
stuff.
I put dents in the car too, you know? And so because I can see that, I lose my temper way less often with my kids. I'm not going to say I don't completely, but your relationship with your children can really improve, and you can have much less stress.
And then you want to have a family compound where you all live together, because you all really like each other, because you respect each other, you see each other, you trust each other, and your conflicts are much healthier and shorter lived, and then have really great resolutions by the end. You're better when you. There isn't
like residual pain. That you actually move on to it, you learn from it, and you're better for it, rather than the opposite.
Yeah, because we still have very direct conversations and critical conversations with our kids, but Mike's right.
And with each other.
Yeah, but we don't lose our temper and snap. And if we ever do, then the great thing is, once you've practiced this enough, they will say, well, I know them, and there must be something that's really hard for them right now. No, really, you do.
Yeah.
Because you've learned this level of trust, and you've learned that you both respect each other and trust each other. And so when it's like that, it's like, whoa, okay, I think I need to help this person get some sleep or some food, or like help them out in some way, instead of like, what? You know?
Yeah. Okay. So go. I encourage you to get the book, Leadership and Self-Deception.
It's going to be so much more effective than this podcast.
Reading it will be, and you have it with you. It's the Arbinger Institute wrote it. It doesn't have a single author, but you should be able to find it. I'll put a link in the description of this video and also in the podcast notes.
It will be a blessing. Blessing to you. Into yours.
For sure.
Thanks for coming along, guys.
Thanks for being here.
Let us know in the comments any questions you have. You can also send them to contact@norpinsouth.com. We appreciate them. We appreciate your kind messages that you've sent. And until next time, bye.
Bye.